So today second topic, that is what is democracy, why democracy. In the previous chapter of democratic lesson we have seen two tales of democracy. In that, two examples we have taken from Chile as well as from Poland. In the Chile's case, we have seen the democratic government before Pinochet's rule and after Pinochet has left over the power. Before Pinochet's rule, we have Allende ruling with good democratic principles, where people have elected the leader and the leader is responsible for people. He has taken certain reforms which will be benefiting the people. But moving on towards the Pinochet's rule, Pinochet is a military leader who has overthrown the Allende government, and then he became the dictator of Chile. Later, when the referendum was conducted, he was being overthrown and we got the democratic government replacing him. In the similar way, in Poland also we have communist rule, Poland Workers' Party rule, which is run on the sidelines of Communist Party with the support of USSR. But after Lech Walesa has turned out in the elections as victorious, the democratic government has been replaced the party's rule in Poland. In the similar way, Nkrumah's rule in Ghana was a democratic setup while he was being overthrown by the military coup there. So here we can understand that democracy is very simple to define. That is, the rulers in democracy, the rulers are elected by people. This is a basic fundamental. Let us take the example of Chile. When Allende was elected by the people, he worked towards the benefit of the people. When Pinochet came, he did not work for the benefit of the people, but he started to harass them. He started to torture the people, those who want to lean towards democracy. The similar case with the Poland also. The party always tried to control the people, whereas Lech Walesa want freedom to the people. In the similar case with Ghana, Nkrumah's rule was overthrown by the military coup, restricting the freedom of the people. So when the rulers are not elected by the people, they would not serve the interest of the people. So in order to serve the interest of the people, the leaders have to be elected by the people only. Then only the leaders will serve the interest of the people. So let us say, in democracy, how can we say that this particular country is following democracy, the other countries are not following democracy? For example, let us take Saudi. Saudi Arabia is one of the countries which is filthy rich with the petroleum reserves in the West Asian region. Though the people are having freedom here, but the king of Saudi was not elected by the people. There are so many restrictions in the social life of the people. Women are not allowed freely to wander here and there. So all these things prove to us that when there is no elected government by the people, there the interests of the people are not at all served. A similar case with the Pakistan. When Pakistan was under the military rule of General Pervez Musharraf, he did not allow the people to have free elections. He did not allow the people to have freedom of press. So all these things make us very clear that the simple basic definition of democracy, the starting point is that in democracy, the leaders have to be elected by the people. Then only the leaders will serve the interest of the people. So what are the basic features of democracy? Now let us see the features of democracy. In the features of democracy, as we described till now, that the basic and the simple definition of democracy is that the leaders or the rulers have to be elected by the people. When we described this one, we have four important words: the rulers, elections, people, and government. When we talk about the rulers, who are the rulers or the officials we are talking about? Are they really capable of ruling? Are these people really worth of ruling? And are they ruling on the lines which are prescribed for them within the interest of the people. We should remember that the ruler cannot do whatever he wants to do. He has to do within the framework given by the people or the limits which are set by the constitution. For example, when we discuss Pakistan issue here, in 1999, General Pervez Musharraf has revolted and did a military coup and removed Nawaz Sharif from power, and in 2002 he changed his position as president by getting people's mandate through a referendum. In this referendum, he got clearly people's mandate supporting him for the next 5 years. Then he became the ruler of Pakistan. After becoming the ruler of Pakistan, he changed the constitutional framework and he brought a new law which is called the legal framework. According to this legal framework, he has changed the authority of president from a nominal status to very powerful status, and through which he can set up a military body like a National Security Council, which will be headed by the military people, and the authorities of the parliament as well as by the provisional assemblies will be restricted to very less powers. The elected people would have very less powers to talk. So all these things he was able to make certain changes. So when we talk about the leaders whom we are electing, they should not do whatever they feel is right. They should do, but within the restrictions, within the limitations of the people that have to be done. And the next, elections. When the elections are done, when we are electing the leaders, the election should be offered in a free and fair manner. When we talk about the elections, there should not be any kind of pressure, there should not be any kind of force working on us. Let us take an example of Mexico. The example of Mexico clearly brings us the idea that for every 6 years in Mexico we have elections. So we can think here we have true democracy because for every fixed period of time we have elections. But the institution of party, which is revolutionary party, does always use force. Even the school teachers pressurize the parents to vote towards that particular party, and there was no free choice for the people to elect any other party. So elections are not offering any true chance for them to elect. They are just a nominal elections. So that kind of elections should not be there. Then coming to people, what about the people? The people, when we talk about the people, one person should be given one value. The people, when we talk for one region, for example, if we take in Estonia, the people those are living in Estonia, where they are from the Russian minority people, it is very difficult for them to get their voting rights in Estonia. The similar case with Fiji. In Fiji is a country in South American continent. So in Fiji, if you have any Indians origin there, it's very difficult for the Indian origin Fiji people to get the right to vote. So it was very difficult to have one person, one value of vote. So when there is one person, one value of vote is not there, then truly we are not getting the actual representation of the people. We are restricting the entire voting section or the segment to very limited sector. So the actual voting people are not the original voters. The only comprised people, like for example, when we have taken the French Revolution, Robert Maximilian has brought certain revolutionary changes, but he brought a bracket for the people to term them as active voters. 25 years of age. The second criteria is they should pay at least 3 times the wages of a common man. Means he should be moderate rich enough that who pays a certain amount of tax, which means the others, those who are not paying the tax, are exempted from voting. They are not allowed to vote. So there is no equal value there. Though we have people, but there is no equality there. So if this is the case, how can we say that here we are having true elections, or we are having true choice, or we are exercising our voting through a proper channel. So the actual defect is, in democracy you should have the rulers elected by the people and they have to work within the framework given by the people. And the next important factor, elections should offer for us a free and a fair choice. In that free and the fair choice, you should be able to make a particular party victorious. At sometimes the ruling party may also should have a chance to lose the elections. Then only we can say that in that particular elections we have a true and fair means of elections and choice is being given. And similarly, when we talk about the people, when there is one person and one value vote only, all people would have equal voting rights, then only we can have true representatives of the people in power. And moving on to understand the government, the form of the government what we are electing. When we are electing a democratic government where the leader will, after getting elected, starts to do whatever he wants, then automatically it does not give any idea or existence of democracy at all. It is only for the namesake that we have conducted elections regularly and we say that we are following democracy. For example, when we take in a country like Zimbabwe, where ZANU PF party always contests for the elections, and till now the only party which is victorious was Robert Mugabe's party. But the media has been restricted very severely. The televisions are pressurized not to telecast any negative implications about the ruling party. So like this, when we say that there is no true choice for the people to look at the other side of the ruling party, then how can we say that the government is a genuine government? Government is working for the benefit of the people. And always we get news that there has been so many malpractices happening during the times of elections in Zimbabwe. So yes, the ruling party always opposes this one and sometimes put them aside, saying that there are no such practices followed in our country. But in actual reality, when there is no other party coming to power, it automatically symbolizes for us that there is no true democracy. So the basic idea is what we need to remember when we talk about the democracy is elected by the people, the government should be elected by the people, and when the elections are happening, that election should be having free and fair elections, and at the same time one person should have one value and only one vote. There are no special persons, no special voting procedures for them. Rule of law, everybody is equal before the law. There should not be any discrimination between the people of different origins. He may be a Hindu, Muslim or a Christian, he may be a non-Indian, he may be a settled person, or he may be a migrated person. Whomever he is, after they get the citizenship, they are equal, they get the right to vote. Rich or poor, higher caste or lower caste, whatever may be the reason, there should not be any kind of divisions or bifurcations or any kind of restrictions on the voting system. That's what we call it as rule of law. So when we say that here we have democracy, certain features has to be identified there. The government should work within the framework given by the people or the people's constitution. Then that should offer a free and fair elections for them, where there can be a chance for the ruling party also to lose the elections, and we should have one person, one value and one vote procedure there, and rule of law should be present so that there should not be any differentiation among the citizens of the country. If these are followed, then we can say that here we are having democracy in so and so particular country. We shall see the arguments against democracy. We have seen what is a basic form of democracy, define the democracy, then we have seen the steps or the basic features of democracy. Now we shall listen to certain arguments which will force us to decide that we should not follow democracy. What are those arguments? Let us see the first one. The first one, the leaders change continuously in democracy, which may finally leads to instability. Yes, when we talk about the leadership change, in democracy we have a procedure that through a smooth procedure in elections, we will have the defeat of the ruling party, which may ultimately result in the change of the leadership. So in the change of the leadership happens, that means the previous government might have planned certain major steps to develop the country, or a certain particular project to be initiated, which has been initiated during that time but may not be liked by the other coming party into power. So automatically that would lead to the dismantling of the previous project. So here we can say it can cause instability for the economy. The second point, the second argument what we have is, democracy is always about political competition and power play. In democracy, we do not find any true and genuine leaders. We find leaders who always are in competition with the political parties and always want to achieve the political power into their hands. So, the political competition. Democracy is always a political competition and power play. Democracy means the game is between the political parties. The political parties are always in competition with each other. They do not trust each other. If a particular government A announces a particular project, the other party which is not in power would always try to criticize the party which is in power, and the intentions of the party would always be questioned. They may not go in the same lines of ideology. If one proves that it is right and good for the people, the other party always tries to prove that this particular policy or this particular idea is wrong. So this is always in political competition, and finally they want to have political power. The political power is the main target of all the political parties. For what we are saying, that they offer a free choice or a true choice for the voter to choose the party into power, but in actual terms they are not offering any true choice, but it's just a power play happening between the political parties, and finally one or the other will achieve that power into their hands. So how can we say that democracy is a true political power or a true people's government? Maybe sometimes really when we observe the election procedures, we may really feel that yes, it is truly a war between the political parties. It's not for the benefit of the people, but for the benefit of the political leaders to establish themselves, to claim themselves as a people's representative. But in actual sense, they do at the benefit of their party members, and later only somewhere at the last milestone you find people's benefits. Second very strong argument against the democratic governments. Third one, in democracy you have many people's representatives. It may be either the presidential system or the parliamentary system, where every policy has to be discussed thoroughly and it has to be ensured that everybody understood the people's representatives. A continuous deliberations happen, a consensus have to be reached, and finally you come on to an onset note, then you declare this particular law has been passed by the parliament or the court. Now the delays, these consultations definitely would lead to delays. So democracy is always time taking and it is delaying. So the golden time, the most valuable thing in this world is time. So if we also have a quotation that justice delayed is justice denied. So how can we justify that democracy, when it is delaying, most of the people are getting denied of the justice? Actual rights are being denied for them. May be true, because from 60 years the women reservation bill has not been passed yet. Moving on to the next major one. The elected leaders do not know the best interest of the people. The leaders, if you take the true statistics of the elections, most of the elections are a limited margin elections, wherein we can find that majority of the people have rejected this person, except a 10% of the minor gap what you have between the competitor and him. So the leader who is elected may not know exactly what is the best interest of the people. When a leader does not know what is the best interest of the people whom he is representing, obviously it would lead for us that he may take any decision which may not at all be in the favor of the people. So that is another major default for the democracy, or the defect for the democracy. Next, we have the democracy always leads to corruption, as we need to consult many people and many deliberations to happen in order to make the work to be clear at various desks. People started to give money for them to pass on the bills. So automatically it leads to corruption. And finally, we also have a common and questioning point about the common people. How can a common man know what is good and what is bad? When we talk about the politicians who are coming into politics, we don't find mostly the well-educated people coming and entering into politics. We find people who have come from the humble beginnings, and later on they establish their own group of people as followers and turn as a famous leaders. So these leaders were once a common ordinary person, and the ordinary people also, the common voters, may not be able to identify what is good and what is bad for them. So how can the leaders identify what is good and what is bad? So these are the common arguments which we hear about the defects of democracy. Now let us sum up this one. The leaders change in democracy. Yes, regularly they change for a periodic intervals, which may sometimes lead to instability. And then democracy is truly a political competition and ultimately gets power play into their hands, either A or B the party. And delays, yes, in democracy you find delay of consultations, and the best interest of the people may not be known to many of the leaders, but not that all the leaders do not know the best interest, and leads to the corruption. Yes, there may be a chances of leading towards corruption, but not 100% sure that it will lead to corruption, and the ordinary people do not know what is good and what is bad. So here we need to understand that these are the common things what we generally discuss, that this may happen, this may not happen and all, but it is not always true. We also have certain other points which we need to look at. We can now conclude that yes, democracy may not be the best form of government of the modern times, but after looking at so many negative points, but still we have the other face to look on. Let us look at the other side of democracy now. Now we shall discuss about the arguments which are in the favor of the democracy. As we till now discussed about the arguments which are against democracy, now let us see here arguments for democracy. In that the first one, China famine. Why did I discuss about China's famine is, let us now first learn about China's famine. China got independence after India got independence, that is in India 1947, whereas for China 1949. After China got its independence, China has established the People's Republic of China with the communist rule, where you have a single party system. Though there are multi parties, only the communist and its allied parties are allowed to contest, and there is no opposition and there is no freedom of press. When it comes to India, we have multi party system, free and true choice of elections will be happen, and freedom of press. There are press freedom, except during the time of emergency. We have always the freedom of press, not at all being restricted by any government. Now, China has experienced from 1958 to 1961 a severe famine. 3 crore people died, literally a very sad incident. But China's economy was way better than Indian economy. Indian economy was not so good when compared to China, but still India did not witness any such kind of incidents or any such major famines in our country. Yes, India also witnessed famines from 1965 to 1968 during the war's time, and after the war period we have got some crisis, but we never got such a massive famine. Why? What is the reason for this? Because in India we have a strong opposition which will always raise its voice so that the people's needs are addressed, people's needs are taken care. That is the reason why whenever there is a problem, when the opposition raises its voice, the government would try to solve the problem by taking some measures. Well, in China, we do not have this kind of setup where the opposition voices are not there at all. The freedom of press is not at all present. That's the reason why the steps cannot be taken to prevent the destruction which is going to come for them. with the voices of opposition which can be heard, but here there is no one to inform to them. That's the reason why we have a massive destruction happening in the name of the famine, where they lost 3 crore people. So good opposition is also very much important to have true democracy. When there is no opposition, you cannot correct your mistakes. There will be no one to put out your mistakes. Then moving on to the second one, we have quality of decision making, and we also have the point that the government is more accountable to the people. In China, there is no accountability to the people because there is only one party framework. When it comes to India, you have multi-party framework, and people through different parties would try to question them, and they are accountable to the people to answer them. When it comes to quality of the decision making, yes, we made a negative point saying that there are continuous deliberations because of which the decisions are delayed. Yes, the decisions are delayed, but when many people put their brains together, do the brainstorming, they would be easily to identify the mistakes which were probably to be happened by various angles, so that the decision can be taken with good quality, so that further mistakes cannot be taken or further mistakes would not happen. That is another positive point of democracy. That is the reason why the quality of the decision making is improved in democracy. The next, methods to deal with the conflicts or the differences. In India, we have different language spoken people, different religious people, different cultural background people, different religions, and different subcastes and caste people. So all these together we accommodate and live together. When it comes to democracy only, we have this idea of accommodating others' views and interest and do not harm others' interest. Wherein the other non-democratic methods, you do not have that. There is a superior racism or extreme importance given to a particular religion people, particular caste people, particular section of people, so the other section people feel that they are minority and they are not being given equality at all. But in democracy, you have equality. There are methods of solving the disputes through consultations, through deliberations, and there is no permanent winner and there is no permanent loser in democracy. It is only the issue based discussion that happens in democracy. That's why there is a method to solve the disputes or the differences. In the similar way, enhances the dignity of the citizens. Yes, democracy may not provide you a magical solution for all problems, but if you do any mistake, you may be a common man, you may be a rich man, you may be an educated person, you may be a political representative, you may be a civil servant. Whoever it is, whoever it may be, all are prosecuted under the same law. So the law enhances the dignity of the citizens irrespective of their caste, color, creed, and sex and race. So all this makes us a democracy a better form by giving dignity, and it also allows to correct its mistakes. Yes, we do not say that in democracy we do not find any mistakes at all. If any mistakes have been flown in, we have methods to discuss, and finally we have a possibility to check that mistakes which are being done in the past to be rechecked and do the corrections for that one. These all are positively towards democracy. Democracy is not the single note solution for all the problems on the present day, but as we know all the other viable alternatives, when compared to all the other viable alternatives, the best alternative what we have in our store is democracy. That's the reason why many people today prefer to have democratic governments rather than military dictatorship or communist party rule or some other kingship rule. So democracy is always in the favor of people. Now we shall see the broader meaning of democracy. We discussed the arguments which are in favor, which are in against. Then we realized that the democracy is the most viable alternative what we have when you look at the other side. Now let us try to understand democracy in detail. Here when we talk about the democracy, democracies are basically involving large number of people. So when we involve large number of people, practically and physically it is impossible for a country like India to gather all its people of more than 120 crores to collect them, to discuss the issues, and then finally to come on to consensus. So it's really a very difficult and practically impossible task. So the most of the democracies run their governments through representatives. People elect their representatives. Finally, the representatives on behalf of the people would represent them and also put for their views as people's views. And the similar way, when we gather all the people also, when it is not possible, the other thing is most of the people may not be interested or may not be skilled enough or do not have any desire to take or participate in politics, because every person is unique and every person has his own tastes, likes and dislikes. So all this also must be considered when we talk about democracy. And when we move on to the other part, the best thing what we learn from democracy is the making of the decisions, the method how you make decisions. When we refer to a family, that when we are taking any decision, all the family members are consulted and their opinions are taken, respected, and then the final consensus to be reached. Democracy is very good, the decision making is very good until it goes on the basis of consultation and equality basis, so that everybody, it may be a powerful or a powerless, strong or a weak, everyone's voice will be heard, and then you do not find any difference between a powerful person and a powerless person, but the consensus can be achieved in a very good quality way, so that any further mistakes may not come in or step in. And we also, consent of all decisions is very, very important. Finally, to conclude, when we say that idealism or ideal democracy, we feel that we compare the existing democracy to the most governments which we want the government to be like this. When we think or when we realize that idealistic democracy is far away from reality, then no government in this world will be an idealistic democratic country. Every democracy has its own positives and negatives. The efforts should always be made to strengthen and to make active participation of the people. Only in democracy you need the active participation of the people. Only in decision making you need people to participate. Whereas in one party rule, monarchy rule or dictatorship rule, they do not want the people to participate actively at all. It is only through democracy that the people's participation is highly required. That is the reason why most of the people, most of the governments are in favor of democracy, that people are actively involved in the decision making as well as in the forming of the government, that you get the people's interest to be represented in the government. When we talk about the true nature of idealism, that the true democracy comes only when there is no one hungry. The true democracy comes when everybody's problems are addressed, which is practically impossible. Democracy is not a magical wand which gets you everything whatever you need. It is not an Aladdin's lamp that will get you whatever you need. It is the way you strengthen it, the way you take it forward. Wherein the single party rule or in the monarchy, people's participation is minimal. They do not want the people to participate. They do not want the people to talk about any policies of the government. But in democracy, they want the people to participate. They want the active participation of the people. The active participation of the people can definitely set up a new goal to the democracy. Democracy is always in test. When one is passed, the other test step in. When people started to question the democratic government, it means that people started to understand what is democracy truly. Then only people started to expect more from democracy, which means always democracy has to serve the interest of the people. Serving the interest of the people should be the major icon or the ideology of a democratic government. That's what we have in this chapter for us. The basics of democracy, the larger view of democracy, the arguments in the favor of democracy, the arguments against democracy, finally the active participation, the political participation, the political developments. These are the main concentrations where the citizens have to concentrate, especially you, the students, who are the future citizens, have to know and participate actively in the politics so that a better and a best democratic form of government can be in existence in India, so that you can strengthen the democratic ideology of our country.